Stephan, it's of course lovely chatting with you. You are the founder of Work Accident Support, and you play a very important role when it comes to occupational injuries in the agricultural sector and the support that comes with that for both farmers and farm workers. Maybe for those that might be not familiar with the work that you do, what exactly is your function in the agricultural space?
Okay, now thanks for the opportunity. You see, there is a lot of employment labor laws in South Africa, and one of it is the administration of work accidents within the sector, within all employment sectors, but specifically the agricultural sector. So what I'm trying to achieve is to make known the information which farmers and their workers should have to administer this on an efficient basis. I mean, how to deal with the government when there's a workplace accident, but also just with regards to the registration of these farms and farmers with the government, because there's a lot of different sectors, within agriculture of how they can be registered. Maybe we're looking at the livestock farmer or someone who's planting something. So those, they have to have all the relevant information of how to do it on a good, efficient basis, yeah.
Yeah. For someone, a farmer who's never heard of the what is called the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, what exactly is that, and why should I as a farmer care about it?
Yeah. So this act was established in 1941. So prior to that, what has happened is if an employee wanted to qualify for compensation, he basically had to take his employee to court for the court to make a judgment of how much must be paid. Now, the result of that is often the awards that the courts issued was of such a nature and it was so big that companies had to close their doors because of the money that they had to pay. So now this act was now introduced in 1941. It was replaced by the current act in 1993. But then in 2022, there was an amendment to the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. Now, this basically says that all companies, including our farmers, must be registered with the Department of Labor's Compensation Fund and pay an annual fee, basically an insurance, to cover their workers against work accidents. So annually, it has to be renewed. So irrespective of how many employees you have, if you have anyone who's earning a salary, you have to register with a compensation fund.
And that's regardless of the scale of your business, whether you are a small scale farmer, medium scale, or commercial.
Exactly. As long as you have got appointed someone and you pay a wage or a salary towards that person, then you have to register. So there's no minimum amount, like for instance in terms of unemployment insurance. So you have to then register with a compensation fund.
What are some of the common mistakes that farmers make when registering for the compensation injuries, what's it called?
Compensation fund.
Fund, yeah. Or what are some of the common mistakes that you see farmers make?
Yeah. You see, as I mentioned, there are different categories of how farmers can register with the compensation fund. So maybe you get a livestock farmer. So he can be regarded as a livestock farmer because there's a category for them. But then also someone who's planting, so they are then regarded within a different sector, in a different category. But then if there's a combination of the two, those farmers can be regarded as a mixed farmer because they're doing both. But now often farmers, they use the wrong sector, the wrong subclass of how they want to register as a company with a compensation fund. Now that result now in them paying more money than they're supposed to pay to the government. So that is one of the issues which I've realized what farmers are making some of the mistakes. But then also when declaring their annual earnings, basically the same as what we do with SARS. Now, in terms of this law, you don't have to include all of the earnings. There's only certain earnings that must be included. So the more earnings you declared, which is maybe not necessary or not applicable, the bigger your account is going to be. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm sitting here now and I'm thinking, what if I only have 1 or 2 workers employed? Do I still have to register under the act?
So the law says, irrespective of how many employees you have, As long as you appointed someone, there's an agreement between you and that employee, and you're paying a wage or a salary to. So the difference is sometimes you can have an employee, but if you're not paying a salary or anything to them, then you don't need to register. But as long, and the other thing, what many companies are also doing, and in the sector as well, so sometimes they register a private company as a firm, but now they're not appointing employees yet. So in those instances, they don't have to register. As soon as they appoint someone, they're going to pay, and then you have to register with a compensation fund. So irrespective of how much you pay out, how many employees you appoint, you have to register with a fund, yeah.
There's a lot of things that can go wrong on a farm. What are some of the injuries that are covered under this act, and what kind of support, I suppose, can farm workers expect when something does go wrong?
Yeah. You see, in my opinion, I would really suggest that this is a good piece of legislation, because this will cover any kind of worker, especially within the agricultural sectors where farm workers are regarded really as vulnerable workers. So they can depend on private health care. So if the farmer is registered and is paying his annual fees, so when anyone gets injured within the sector, they can go to private hospitals. So irrespective of what kind of injury it is, what the law stipulates, so there is a criteria of how they look at an accident. So it should have happened within your workplace, and it should result in a personal injury. Maybe there's a cut or anything, so which the doctor can diagnose, which you can see. So all of those injuries, doesn't matter how serious. So as soon as a worker requires medical treatment or there's any expenses, then it has to be registered by the farmer, by the employer. So it's not the worker's responsibility, it is the employer. But as I mentioned, some of the benefits, for instance, which I can qualify for is the medical expenses, and we know medical care can be quite expensive and it can depend on private health care. But then the farmer is supposed to pay the injured workers his or her salary, but then at least the farmer can claim it back. But in more serious cases, especially within the agricultural sector, you get many instances where maybe because they work with machineries, maybe someone lost his or her finger or another limb, so then they can also be compensated for that type of injury. But in unfortunate incidents in where a farm worker died as a result of his work, then the family can also qualify for benefits now. For children, the pension, the spouse as well, and also for the funeral expenses that can also be paid. But even children who's going to study further, they can also qualify for some sort of a bursary from the fund, which the fund will pay for towards their studies.
So in the event that that cut happens or a farm worker loses their finger, what are the steps that need to be followed exactly from that point onwards?
Okay, so the first thing that the farmer has to do is to register the claim within 7 days after he received information about that accident, and it has to be done online. So there's a prescribed form which has to be completed, where it just states the fact of how it happened, who's the employee. But then that employee has to go and seek medical treatment as soon as possible, because you just never know how serious it can be. So that medical report must also be submitted to the fund, and just a copy of the employee's ID, just to make sure, okay, that is the person who got injured, and also just a payslip indicating how much money the employee is earning, because that will also be used to determine how much compensation will be paid. So those are the first and most important documents that has to be submitted to the Department of Labour, the compensation fund, to get the claim registered. But then it's just a question that the employee has to undergo treatment as and when the doctor says, but okay, he or she must come back. And then at some stage, the doctor will close the case. And then from the time that the case is closed, now there can be a determination from the compensation fund side, okay, what compensation is going to be payable. So they ensure that is, but the important thing is in 7 days, and then the farmer has to pay the employee's wages. But as I said, it can be claimed back from the fund.
I'm wondering now, what are the implications if the claim isn't made within law? It's not reported within 7 days. How does that affect the farmer?
Well, currently the law says, okay, it must be in 7 days. But if it's not registered within 1 year, then benefits will be forfeited. So they can still register it, But what the compensation fund will do, they can still pay all the benefits on that claim, but then the benefits will now be deducted back from the farmer or the company who has not reported it in that 7 days. So although the law says benefits will be paid, but now that the compensation fund can claim it now directly back from the farmer if it's not reported. And they are looking at legislation to change the law to issue any kind of penalties if the claim is not registered within 7 days. So I think what's important, farmers should inform the employees of exactly what is the process they have to follow once they get injured, so that it can make it more easier for the farmer to register it within that time frame of 7 days. Yeah.
So an entrepreneur that is planning to launch their business and they're planning to hire, of course, workers, what would you say is the best way for someone like that to prepare, both from a legal point of view, but also financially?
Yeah. You know what? That is so important, because these days you can't just look at your business in isolation. You have to determine, you know what, there's a lot of labor legislation which is going to have an impact of how I run my business. And you have to make sure that you adhere and that you are compliant to all of that. So the one thing is now with regards to the compensation fund, so as soon as you appoint someone and you know this is the salaries or the ways which I'm going to pay that employee, within the first 7 days after you employ the person, you have to register your company with a fund to say, okay, this is the kind of farming that I'm going to do. This is what I believe I'm going to pay out from this date. I'm registering up until the end of the following financial year, which is February the next year, and give an estimate of how much you're going to pay. And based on that, the fund is going to determine how much money you have to pay now to the government. And then also look at unemployment insurance to say, okay, how many hours is this person going to work? So if they're going to work at least for 24 hours a month, then you also have to register that employee for unemployment insurance. So those are the two main issues which you have to look at. And then just start to plan in terms of your finances. But I mean, those calculations can be made. There is a criteria, there's a specific formula which you can see what you believe you are going to pay to the government. But as I say, in terms of the benefits, that is really beneficial to belong to this to the fund. I mean, it is statutory, so you have to do that. But as I say, once an accident happened, then you at least have the knowledge that, you know what, my work is going to be covered for an accident, for all the expenses. So in terms of that, it is a good idea to make sure that you are compliant in terms of this act. Yeah.
Stephan, if anyone had to ask me what exactly is it that you do, I would say that you are busy with God's work. You play such an important role in the agricultural sector in safeguarding both farmers but also farm workers when it comes to injuries. All the best with the amazing work that you do.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic.